Fill the tank. Drive from New York. When the fuel light finally comes on, you are in Miami. That is not a hybrid trick or a lab fantasy. That is a real production car with a gasoline engine that just set a Guinness World Record at 106 miles per gallon, nearly double the best Toyota ever built. And the company behind it was making refrigerator parts 30 years ago. To understand how a refrigerator parts workshop ended up embarrassing the entire global car industry, you have to go back to where it started. Because the engine is only half the story. The other half is the man who spent 40 years being told no. Every great engineering story starts with a person, and this one starts in a farming village in Zhejiang Province, China, in 1963. That is where Li Shufu was born, into a family that worked the fields, in a country where private citizens were not even allowed to own car companies. His first business tells you everything about how his mind works. As a teenager, he bought a cheap camera and charged villagers a few coins for photographs. Then he noticed something nobody else did. The used photo-developing chemicals contained traces of silver, and silver could be extracted and sold. While everyone else saw waste, he saw money hiding in plain sight. That instinct, finding value where nobody is looking, became the engine of his entire life. By the mid-1980s, he had turned about $3,000 of family money into a small factory making refrigerator parts. The parts business grew into whole refrigerators. The refrigerators funded a move into motorcycles. And each step gave him something more valuable than profit. It taught him manufacturing from the ground up with nobody's permission. Therefore, when this man eventually turned his attention to cars, he was not starting from zero the way the world assumed. He was starting from 20 years of building things with his own hands. 4 wheels and 2 couches. In 1997, he made the announcement that turned him into a national joke. He declared he was going to build cars. Understand what that meant at the time. He had no automotive experience, no foreign partners, and no license, because no private Chinese company in history had ever been allowed to manufacture automobiles. When journalists asked if he understood how complex a car really is, his answer became legendary. He said a car is nothing more than 4 wheels and 2 couches. The industry laughed. He kept building. And in 2001, that stubbornness paid off when Geely became the first privately owned company in Chinese history licensed to build cars. The early models were rough and cheap, and critics tore them apart. But while the critics were busy laughing, Li Shufu was studying the global chessboard because he knew exactly what his young company was missing: engineering depth. And he knew exactly where to buy it. Therefore, the joke of 1997 was never really a joke. It was the opening move of a 30-year plan, and the next move stunned the entire industry. The Volvo masterstroke. In 2007, he wrote a letter to Ford asking to buy Volvo. Ford ignored it. So he flew to the Detroit Auto Show in 2008 and asked in person, and Ford brushed him off again. Most people would take the hint. Instead, he came back a 3rd time with bankers and a serious plan, and in 2010, in the wreckage of the financial crisis, the farmer's son bought Volvo for $1.8 billion. Now, here's the part most videos get wrong, and it is the key to everything that follows. The world expected him to strip Volvo for parts and drag the brand down market. He did the exact opposite. He left the Swedish management in charge, invested heavily, and quietly set up joint engineering centers where Volvo's world-class powertrain engineers worked shoulder to shoulder with Geely's hungry young teams. He was not buying a badge. He was buying decades of engineering knowledge and compressing it into years. Once that playbook worked, he ran it again and again. Lotus, Polestar, Link, and Coder Proton in Malaysia. Then in 2018, he personally bought 9.69% of Daimler, which made the kid who once scraped silver out of photochemicals the largest single shareholder of the company behind Mercedes-Benz. Therefore, every acquisition was a classroom, and in April 2026, the world finally saw the final exam. That exam is the engine. And to understand why it broke the industry's brain, you first need to see the wall it smashed through. If this story is already blowing your mind, hit subscribe right now because the second half is where it gets crazy. This is the engine that did what Formula One teams spend hundreds of millions trying to do. The wall. At 41%, engineers judge every engine by one brutal number called thermal efficiency. Out of all the energy locked inside your fuel, how much actually becomes motion? The answer for the car you probably drive is depressing. A typical gasoline engine converts only 25 to 35% of fuel energy into movement. Everything else escapes as heat, out the exhaust off the engine block into the air, which means that for your entire driving life, roughly 2 out of every $3 you spend at the pump bought you nothing but warm air. Naturally, the whole industry has fought that waste for a century, and for the last 25 years, the undisputed champions of that fight were the Japanese. Toyota's hybrid engines and Nissan's e-Power system clawed their way up to roughly 41 to 42%. And then they stopped, not because they got lazy, but because physics itself pushed back. Burn fuel leaner and faster to save energy, and the combustion turns unstable. The engine knocks, misfires, and destroys itself. So 41% became the industry's sound barrier, the number textbooks treated as the practical limit for anything mass-produced. Only one kind of engine on Earth went meaningfully higher: Formula One. Those power units cost tens of millions each, use exotic materials, and get rebuilt constantly by armies of specialists, and even they only hover just above 50%. So hold that scoreboard in your head. Your car sits near 30. The best Toyota ever built sits at 41. Formula One sits at 50. Geely's new engine hit 48.41%. And Guinness World Record certified it as the highest thermal efficiency ever achieved in a mass-produced automotive engine. Therefore, a family sedan engine built on a normal production line now sits closer to Formula One than to the best engine Toyota has ever sold. That is not an improvement. That is a different era. Inside the fire tornado. So how did a company that was welding refrigerator panels 40 years ago beat physics that stopped Toyota? The answer is that it did not happen in one leap. It happened as a 5-year siege, and Geely published the receipts. In 2021, their hybrid engine hit 43.32%, which already beat Toyota. Their BHE 1.5 engine platform then pushed to 46.5. Last year, they reached 47.26, and this year, 48.41. 4 record-level jumps in 5 years, while most Western engine programs barely moved at all. At the heart of it is a combustion system Geely calls the Fire Tornado, and while the name sounds like marketing, the engineering underneath is deadly serious. It starts with the air. A specially shaped intake port, which engineers nicknamed the duckbill, forces incoming air into a violent, tightly controlled tornado inside the cylinder. Into that tornado, fuel is injected at 500 bar, over 7,000 pounds per square inch, atomizing the gasoline into a mist so fine it burns almost instantly and almost completely. Because the burn is so fast and clean, Geely could push the compression ratio to an extreme 15.5 to 1 and add Miller's cycle valve timing, both of which squeeze extra work out of every single combustion event. And because such lean mixtures normally refuse to ignite, they added a 150 millijoule ignition system powerful enough to light a flame that would simply misfire in a normal engine. Then they went after friction, the silent thief inside every engine, with diamond-like carbon coatings, mirror polished surfaces, and ultra-low viscosity oil, cutting internal friction by 16.3%. But the hardware is only half the story, because the final ingredient is something Toyota's engineers in the 1990s could never have used: artificial intelligence. Even a record-breaking engine is only efficient inside a narrow sweet spot of speed and load, and step outside that zone in stop-and-go traffic, for example, and efficiency collapses. So Geely built the engine into a hybrid system called i-hev, where an AI energy manager watches everything in real time: your speed, the road, the battery, your right foot, and makes one ruthless decision dozens of times per second. The gasoline engine is only ever allowed to run inside its maximum efficiency zone. The moment conditions would force it to run wastefully, a 230 kilowatt electric motor takes over instead, a motor strong enough to launch the car from 0 to 30 kilometers per hour in 1.84 seconds. Think of it this way: the engine is a world record athlete, and the AI is a coach that never lets it play a single bad minute. Put them together and you get Verification Day, where Guinness measured the complete system at 2.22 liters per 100 kilometers. Convert that, and you get the number that traveled around the world: roughly 106 miles per gallon. A second world record, same company, same month. Therefore, this record was not one lucky breakthrough. It was 5 years of stacked engineering wins, sealed by an AI brain that squeezes value out of every single drop of fuel. What 106 miles per gallon means in your real life. Records are abstract, so let me translate this into your actual driveway. Take a normal 15-gallon fuel tank. At America's average of 30 miles per gallon, that tank gives you about 450 miles, roughly Los Angeles to Las Vegas and back. Put the same tank behind 106 miles per gallon and you get nearly 1,600 miles. That is Los Angeles to Denver, and then most of the way home again without stopping for fuel even once. Now translated into money. If you drive 15,000 miles a year with gas at $3.50 a gallon, a 30 miles per gallon car burns about $1,750 in fuel every year. The same driving at 106 miles per gallon cost under $500. More than $1,200 a year stays in your pocket every year you own the car. And to see how far ahead this really is, look at what the old champion did just 2 years earlier. In 2024, Toyota drove a Prius from Los Angeles to New York in a carefully planned efficiency showcase, an average 92.9 miles per gallon, and the automotive press celebrated it as a triumph. Geely's production sedan just beat that celebrated number, which is exactly why a Geely spokesperson publicly declared their technology will comprehensively surpass the Japanese hybrid systems. 30 years of Japanese dominance challenged out loud, with Guinness certificates as the receipts. Therefore, this is not a trophy engine for a museum. The i-hev system is rolling out across Geely's mainstream lineup through 2026. From sedans rated around 59 miles per gallon on the strict WLTC cycle to family SUVs around 50, built for the masses from day one. The problem electric cars could not solve. At this point, you are asking the fair question: were we not all supposed to be going electric? Why does a gasoline record even matter in 2026? It matters because the real world voted, and the results were messier than the advertisements. Electric cars are genuinely brilliant technology, but living with one still comes with fine print. Fast charging on a road trip means 20 to 40 minutes of waiting instead of a 5-minute fuel stop. Cold weather makes it worse because below freezing, most EVs lose 30 to 40% of their range, turning a 300-mile battery into a 180-mile battery on a January morning in Minnesota. And years down the road, an out-of-warranty battery replacement can cost $10,000 to $20,000, enough to erase a decade of fuel savings in one bill. Now look at what Geely built through that lens, and the strategy becomes obvious. An i-hev carries a tiny battery of just 1 to 2 kilowatt hours compared to 70 or 100 in a typical EV. A smaller battery means a fraction of the lithium, cobalt, and nickel, which means a fraction of the mining footprint and a fraction of the cost. And for the driver, nothing about life has to change. No home charger, no route planning, no anxiety. You fill up like you always have, except now it happens maybe once a month. The market already understands this trade. Toyota sold roughly 4.4 million hybrids in 2025, about 42% of everything it built, while BMW has reportedly scaled back parts of its EV plans as demand softened. And Geely is not alone because BYD's newest hybrids can travel over 2,000 kilometers, roughly Miami to Boston, on one tank and one charge, while Chery, Chang'an, and Great Wall ship hybrids Western automakers currently cannot match. Therefore, while Detroit's mainstream engines still sit below 35% efficiency, an entire Chinese industry has vaulted into the high 40s. That is not a gap anymore. That is a generation. It is already coming to your showroom. Here is the twist that makes this everyone's story, not just China's. Remember who Geely owns: Volvo, Polestar, Lotus, a smart car venture with Mercedes-Benz, and most importantly, a 50-50 engine joint venture with Renault called Horsepower Train, the same partnership involved in these record engines, which sells powertrain technology to automakers around the world. There is already talk that models sharing platforms with Geely vehicles could inherit this exact system. Follow that chain to its conclusion. The technology certified in China this April will be sitting in European and American showrooms before the decade is out, wearing badges you already know and trust. You might buy it without ever learning where it came from. And Li Shufu is already looking past this record because for 20 years he has also been betting on methanol fuel, arguing it carries more than 10 times the energy density of lithium batteries. Whether that bet pays off or not, the pattern of his life is unmistakable. While everyone else argues about which future is coming, he builds for all of them. Therefore, the question is no longer whether this technology reaches your driveway. The only question is which badge it will be wearing when it arrives. This whole story really comes down to one man and one number, a farmer's son who sold photographs for coins, who was laughed out of the room in 1997, who was ignored by Ford twice, and bought Volvo anyway, now holds the world record for the most efficient production engine in the 140-year history of the automobile. 48.41% efficiency, 106 miles per gallon, certified, mass-produced, and already spreading through brands you know. The future of the engine was not decided in Detroit, it was not decided in Tokyo, it was decided in Hangzhou, and the rest of the industry just found out. So here is my question for you. If a hybrid gave you 106 miles per gallon with no charger, no range anxiety, and no 5-figure battery bill, would you still go fully electric? Drop your answer in the comments and subscribe so you do not miss the next one.